so excited to be here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining in today's session. Welcome to your final session on day one. I hope that today has been filled with a ton of inspiration, a ton of insights. And my goal is to make sure that we end the day with a little bit of fun, a lot of energy, and hopefully some useful tips and tricks to get you to start thinking about how to build your company's brand in just the right way. My name is Shilpa Gadhoke, and I have been building, scaling, and revitalizing brands and businesses for global companies, for mid-sized family-owned companies, and for high-growth startups pretty much my entire career. At See Good Strategy Group, we help organizations and teams increase their brand market value through a purpose-driven business model so that they're not only growing their bottom line, but they're also growing their impact across socioeconomic and environmental initiatives. So my career has been specialized in the world of brand strategy and brand management. And that's why today I wanted to build this seminar so that you can start to propel your business growth by getting to the heart of who you are serving, how you are serving them, and what unique value you're adding to your customers or your consumers' lives through your business. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide. This is just the, what makes me think I'm credible enough to talk about this topic slide. These are just some of the brands that I have personally led and managed at companies and other brands that I've had the privilege of working with as clients. But what I hope that you take away from this slide is that each of these brands operates in a different space. And each of these brands has a different story to tell. We are here so you can start thinking about your story for your brand and your business. And what do you want your audience to know so much so that it compels them to act? So here's what we're going to be tackling in today's session. We're going to start with defining your target audience and what are the components that go into doing that, how to understand your competitive landscape and assess your competitive landscape, what goes into crafting your unique value proposition, and that all of that then culminates into building your brand's positioning statement. This is essentially the brand building framework because it addresses the who, the what, and the how for your brand and for your company by assessing the right market levers. One key point to note before we dive into our first item agenda is that if throughout this talk today and throughout the seminar, you have any questions on anything that I'm addressing, I want to hear them. So please, please, please put your questions in the Q&A tool that's usually on the bottom of your screen. And I'll make sure that at the end of this presentation, we get to as many questions as possible. If for whatever reason, I don't get to your question, probably because of time, I will also be sharing my email address with you at the end of this talk. Please email me your question, and I want to make sure that I get back to you with my perspective. I think the Q&A parts are really the key value parts of each session. That's where I think you guys get the most value, so I want to make sure that I address that. All right, so we're going to dive right in and have some fun. Okay, so the foundations of any brand, any organization, always, 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 have I said always enough? Always starts with your consumer or your customer, if you're a B2B business, in mind. Why? Because if you don't have someone to buy your product or your service, then you don't have a business. And if you don't know who you are building your brand for, then your brand is not sustainable. And I don't mean in like the green energy type of way, although I am a huge proponent of climate action. But I mean that your brand will not sustain long-term. So that's why we really need to get to the heart of the who. Now, I also want to acknowledge that sometimes this can feel like a very daunting task for people because it feels easier to say, well, I mean, technically anyone can be our consumer, right? I mean, I'll take anybody, just as long as they're paying and they're buying, like, I don't care, right? I encourage you not to think that way. In fact, in the brand world, we have a pretty popular saying that goes something like this. If you mean everything to everyone, then you don't mean anything to anyone. The successful underpinnings of the most long-standing brands are that not only are they so good at targeting their target audience, but they know their audience so well like the back of their hand. And I also want to debunk any myths that readily start with, well, of course I know my consumer. I am my consumer. Like I know what I like and what I don't like. I say this with all the love in my heart, but that may be true. You might be your own consumer, but you are one individual, friend. And unless you are that sole person who is going to buy all of your products or engage in all of your services, then we have to identify an audience, and we cannot base business decisions off of a singular person's personal needs, wants, or desires. Identifying an audience also enables us to understand that connective tissue that connects these individuals together. So if one person thinks of something as a tension, is that truly a shared tension across this group of individuals? That's why we get to the heart of a target audience. So how do we do that? I like to think of this as ITV. First, the I is identifying who we are targeting, and then figuring out that collective tension that your audience is experiencing that you as a business want to help them solve, and then understand what they value. So let's go into this into more detail. We're going to stay on this slide for a little bit. So under identify, your idea for your business likely was inspired by an experience that you or someone you know, or maybe someone you observed had. Start there. Describe everything you can about that person or those persons. You might start by describing them demographically, or their ideologies, or their lifestyle, or what they like and they don't like, or how are they influenced. Most people stop there, but we're not going to do that. We're going to take this a step further. So we're going to go ahead and start to identify your market size. Are there more people like those people that you just described? How many would you say? Where do they live? What behaviors link them together? Identifying our market size enables us to understand how big is this idea anyway, and what is the market and buying potential of this audience? That if we were to scale our business, can we get to a point where we're going to eventually make a profit? We may not be making a profit today, but eventually is the market size there in order to make a profit one day? This is also where a persona can come in handy. And we're going to see some examples of brands that use personas later on in this talk to kind of go through that at that time. So the next stage is tension. In the story of your brand, your tension is the conflict or the villain that you are going after. So Batman exists because there's Joker. Without Joker, Batman is just what? Bruce Wayne, right? So what are the tensions or the realities that your audience is struggling with that you as a business want to help them solve? What are the emotions that are associated with that tension? How do those emotions change if that tension were to go away? And why are we talking about emotions? Because humans are emotional creatures, right? We make 90 to 95% of our purchasing decisions based off of emotion alone. That is a researched statistic. A lot of what happens in our subconscious. So unearthing the emotions that are tied to our attention is key to unearthing how you're going to add value in your consumers or your customers' lives. Another important question to ask around your tension is how deep, how big is this tension anyway? And is this deep enough that your consumer wants to do something about it? So much so that they're willing to pay to have it removed from their lives? Because if they're not willing to pay, then you might be working on solving the wrong tension, and you may not have a viable business. The last part of this is values. Think of values as the characteristics or the attributes that go into your consumer making their purchase decision. So there can be many things that we value as consumers and as individuals. There's usually one very important thing that drives our purchase. We call that a purchase driver, or the most important thing that your consumer values. Your job is to know that very well. But don't discount the rest of the attributes that also go into making their purchase decision. And we call these secondary attributes. It's important to understand what they value as well. And you can build that into your product or your service as you're building that out, but always make sure you're addressing the key purchase driver. So I know this was a lot, but now we're going to show how this comes to life. I'm going to show you examples of 3 different brands, and I wanted to intentionally show you 3 different brands that operate in very different spaces. They're all very different sizes. They're across different industries, because I wanted you guys to understand how all of these fundamentals that we're going to take you through are consistent, and they're all prevalent no matter what type of business you are forming for yourself. So I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I love this stuff. So I thought it would be fun to deconstruct a commercial. So we're gonna start with a pretty popular brand. I'm gonna show you a commercial, and then we're gonna ask you a couple of poll questions. One that is more around who is the target audience for this brand, and the second one is what tension do you think this brand is trying to solve for their audience? One little key point to note, in case the sound does not play on the commercial, don't fret, just pay attention to whatever is on the screen. When we go through the poll questions, we're going to be talking through them anyway, and no one's getting graded on this anyway, so it'll just be a fun experience. All right, so here we go. We're going to go to the first commercial.
You right there, baby.
New Pampers. Unlike ordinary diapers with 2 layers, Pampers have 3 absorbent layers to stay up to 3 times drier. So babies can sleep soundly all night. Wishing you love, sleep, and play. Pampers.
All right, I hope that sound played, but if it didn't, don't fret. Do your best to answer these next questions. Lindsay, I'm going to ask for your help to put up the first poll question. Awesome. So this is, who is the target audience for Pampers? Select all babies, all moms, or all moms with babies. You guys have about 10 seconds to answer this question, and then we're going to just discuss it. All right, 3, 2, 1. We're going to end the poll and share the results. All right, so great. Those of you who said all moms with babies, you guys are correct. Pampers actually goes so far to describe their target audience as moms of babies of 0 to 36 months, because as soon as you become pregnant, they want to be your best friend. And then about 36 months of your baby's age is when they know there's not really a lot that they can do for you anymore. So they kindly send you on your way, and it's a revolving door of consumers that are constantly going through the brand. So it is all moms of babies. Great. So now we're going to move to the next poll question. And Lindsay would love your help to do that. And once that poll question number 2 comes up, we're going to start talking about the tension that we're trying to address. Do you guys all see the poll? There we go. Poll number 2. So what is the tension that Pampers is trying to solve for? Is it a baby crying at 3 a.m. in the morning? Is it a baby waking up in the middle of the night because of a leaky diaper? Is it moms losing sleep in the middle of the night to tend to a crying baby? And is it the fact that the other diaper brands only have 2 layers of absorbency? What are they trying to address? Go ahead and select your best answer. And we're going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're going to end the poll. All right, so those of you who selected a baby waking up in the middle of the night because of a leaky diaper, you guys have it. So what Pampers understands is that sleep is important to mom, very much, but sleep is even more important to baby. Why? Because it's during sleep when baby's brain develops the most. And if during their sleep they're waking up by a leaky diaper, then that is ultimately detrimental to baby. Plus, baby is not a happy camper without a full night's sleep. And why is that important? Because every mom, every parent wants their baby to be what? Happy and healthy, right? Isn't that the universal truth? Parents will go to great lengths to make sure that their kids are happy and healthy. So how do we get to the heart of what that means for a diaper brand? This is where values come in. When babies are in a wet, leaky diaper, they are not comfortable, right? And so therefore the #1 purchase driver for moms is reliable leak protection, because comfort is equal to a baby's happiness at the end of the day. Now that's why reliable leak protection is their #1 purchase driver, but the added attributes of comfort can differ depending on the stage that their baby is in. So that's why, and we can close this poll, and we're going to move on to the next slide. Let's see. Oops. And stop sharing. That's why, let's see, next slide. There we go. That's why across Pampers' portfolio, they look at addressing each of these different definitions of comfort depending on the stage of the baby. So when a baby is a newborn, softness is equal to comfort, as is leak protection. So for those moms, there's swaddlers. Once your baby starts to move around and groove around and crawl and climb and all that fun stuff, stretchability and adaptability at the legs, waist, and bottom is what is equal to comfort for those babies, plus leak protection. So for those moms, there's cruisers. And for those moms, sure, they might appreciate softness, they might appreciate stretchability, but they don't appreciate it so much so that they're willing to pay extra for it. And they just really want the table stakes, a reliable diaper that won't leak. And so for those moms, there's Baby Dry. So what you can tell is that through each of these in their product portfolio, the thing that's consistent is leak protection, all because, again, that ladders up to the #1 purchase driver for moms for this brand. Now we're going to take a look at a different brand. When it first entered the market, it disrupted the taxi industry. So we're going to take a look at Uber. So Uber, when it first started out at the onset, it defines its target audience as urban residents who need a ride. Now, it's important to note that there's a plethora of market segments that fall under that, right? You could be a busy student, you could be a busy working professional, you could be a retired person who still is an urban resident who needs a ride. And Uber's advertising will flex their messaging to address the needs of those target audiences, but all of them fall under the overarching umbrella. This is an example of a persona. So a persona is an overarching description of a group of people based on a shared need, quality, or behavior. But what do these people struggle with, right? If you're a busy person that needs a ride in an urban city, you're trying to get to your destination as quickly and efficiently as possible, but you don't either have access to a car or you can't drive yourself. So that's the key tension. Anyone know back in the day what the worst feeling in the world was for a busy urban professional who needed to get somewhere very quickly but didn't have access to a car? Was the inability to find a cab. But what if anyone could be a cab driver? And what if you could order a cab within minutes, all in the palm of your hand? But what do these folks value the most? The #1 thing that this target audience values is door-to-door service, right? These people are not looking for public transportation. They want to be picked up and dropped off to their destination, minimal interruption in between. Now, of course, there's various other things that these consumers value as well. For example, some might value a luxurious ride. Others might value an eco-friendly ride. And again, Uber will flex its portfolio offerings for those different segments of consumers, depending on those attributes, similar to how Pampers flexes its portfolio for their attributes. So now we're going to take a look at a commercial for Uber. This is one of their earlier commercials in 2016 that they had put on for advertising their new app at the time. The app has completely changed since then, but I wanted to show you what they came out with at the earlier stages of their brand, because I think that's important to understand how they built and where they started from. So again, if you can hear the sound, amazing, it adds to the experience. If you can't, it's quite all right. There is no voiceover, so just pay attention to whatever's on the screen and then we'll talk about it for a couple seconds. Here we go. So Uber is a technology company. So obviously in their advertising, they want to show you all of the different parts of that technology and the design that will fit your needs, which is important. But if you noticed the very last line in the spot, which is a faster way there is here, that is how Uber is trying to address that tension for their audience, right? These are busy professionals, these are busy urban residents who need a ride and get to their destination as quick and efficiently as possible. So guess what? A faster way there is here with Uber. And finally, we're going to talk about a small service-based business. Capital Pain and Wellness Center is a physicians group that specializes in chronic pain management. Now, chronic pain can hit you at any point in your life. You can be a little older in life, you can be younger in life, you can be active, you can be non-active or inactive. But how do we get to the heart of describing this persona for their audience? It's actually quite simple. The target is described as chronic pain sufferers. I want this to be a lesson in simplicity because you don't have to have fancy descriptions, right? It doesn't have to be complex. In strategy and in marketing, the simpler, the better. That is how we want to play our game. So chronic pain sufferers, if anyone has dealt with chronic pain, hopefully some of this may resonate with you. But usually these people have been dealing with pain for quite a while, and it disrupts their day-to-day lives. They can't pursue the passions that they used to because now they're limited in what they can do. It starts to take over their mental mindset. So it's a huge burden on their mental health. The freedom to live their day-to-day lives is really affected. And it's usually at this point in time where these audience members are seeking out the help for capital pain and wellness. But what do these patients value? Like most patients, we value knowledgeable and expertly trained staff, right? We don't want to go to a doctor who doesn't know what they're doing. We also value ensuring that there is appointment availability. We don't want to wait 8 months to go see a doctor. But what is the number one thing that keeps patients coming back again and again and again? It's impeccable customer service. What if you were to walk into a doctor's office where the entire staff knew your name, where the doctor's bedside manner is so great that not only do they spend the time to really understand what is ailing you, but they know all of the nuances that make you unique. When you walk in a Capital Pain and Wellness Center, you're not a patient, you're a guest. You don't have the privilege of seeing the doctor has the privilege of hosting you. This is a key part of Capital Pain and Wellness's differentiation strategy. So to recap, ITV, identify your target audience, figure out that collective tension that they're experiencing that you as a business want to help them solve, and understand what they value. I hope these 3 brand examples helped to bring these 3 points to life. So now we're going to move to this next section, and I want to take a little bit of a beat here. Why do we look at our competition before we're looking at how do we uniquely add value or differentiate ourselves in the market? It's because only after we map out our competition can we really identify where those white space opportunities are. If you're building your brand similar to your competition or even the same as your competition, then the only thing that you're ever going to be able to compete on is price. And trust me, that is not a place that you want to be. The whole point is to be paid your worth and even price beyond that because you have spent the time to build a differentiated brand that not only is something that your audience wants, but is something that your audience needs. And when you can do that, ladies, you can charge whatever price you want. So we're going to go into how do we do that? The first step is very similar to what we talked about with our defining our target audience, which is identifying your competition. So how do we do that? Think through the answers to some of these questions. Who are the companies? What are the products? What are the services? What are the brands that are working on solving that same tension for your target audience that you are? What is their approach? What methodology are they using? What do they do well? What are they lacking? And is what they are lacking something that your audience is wanting, needing, and willing to pay for? Because if you can find that, that might be a really great white space area for you to innovate in. But wait, what if you're like Uber and you're designing a product and service that is first to market? There's never been anything like it. This is what we call a first mover or a category pioneer or a category disruptor. How do you assess the competitive landscape for a product or a service that doesn't have any competitors yet? Well, 2 rules. Number 1, there are always competitors. They just may not show up the way you think they do. And the second part is focus on the alternate use cases. What I mean by this is focus on those companies, those products, those brands, those services that your audience uses in that time of attention-filled moment as a substitute. Said another way, when you were to launch your service or your product, what will your product or service make obsolete? Anyone remember iPods? So those are pretty obsolete now, but at one point in time, they were new to market. They were a category disruptor. So what did iPods make obsolete? Discmen. Anyone remember those? They were like there for a hot minute, right? Very different products, but same use case. Same thing with DVDs and VHS, right? DVDs replaced VHS tapes, again, available for like a hot second. Same use case, very different products. What about social media? What did social media replace? Well, social media replaced a lot of things. The way we talk to our friends, maybe calling them on the phone, writing letters, getting together in person in some cases. Now you can just connect with your friends in the palm of your hand in the comfort of your own home. We can debate whether or not this is a healthy shift for society, but that's not what we're here to do. The underpinnings of this is that there are always competitors. You just need to know where to look. So then we move on to the next phase, which is mapping out our competition. Now, because we spent so much time in the upfront really understanding our consumers and we know their drivers of their purchase drivers and what they value, we have the answers to these. So on the x-axis, you're going to put your purchase driver. What's the number one thing that your consumer values? And on the y-axis, you're going to pick one of the other important attributes that is interesting to you that you think you might want to delve more into. You're going to take all of your competitors that you've identified and you're going to map them according to how well they execute against these two attributes. If Pampers were to do this, their graph might look something like what you see on the left side of your screen. Now, the key point here is how well your competitors execute, not how well they communicate about those attributes. The difference, I'm going to pick on Honest Company here. I have nothing against the Honest Company at all. I'm just trying to use this to make a point. The Honest Company might advertise that they are the softest diaper on the market. But is that true? That's what you have to find out. You have to identify how well do your competitors execute against these attributes. Because if they're not executing against an attribute that they're talking about, that might be a white space opportunity for you. And then finally, determining and evaluating your competitors' positioning. Using the information that is available to you. You can use your competitor's website, their email marketing campaigns, their social media, anything that's available to you. I'd like you to reconfigure their positioning statement to the best of your ability. What is your best hypothesis of what this might look like? I'm actually going to give you a template of a positioning statement later on in this talk. Feel free to use that. Once you have put together all of their brand positioning statements to the best of your ability, put it together on one piece of paper and look at them holistically. Ask yourself these questions. Where are they similar? Where are they different? Where are the gaps? What does each competitor stand for? How might you be able to differentiate your business? And what is the promise that they are promising consumers and how well are they executing on that promise? When you put these three steps together, you identify your competition, you map them out, and you evaluate your competitors' positioning, you will have all the tools at your disposal to really understand where those white space opportunities lie. And that then feeds into crafting our unique value proposition. So I'm going to ask you to indulge me for just a moment, and I'd love for you to do a visioning exercise with me. If you can close your eyes, I want you to think back to a time where you have attended your favorite sporting event, or maybe your favorite concert. What's going on? What's surrounding you? Maybe you're sporting your team's colors, or maybe you're sporting your Taylor Swift Eras Tour t-shirt. Hey man, I have a girl crush on her. This is a safe space. I think she's great. But what else do you notice? Are you cheering? Are you screaming? For those of you who did indulge in this visualization exercise, you may open your eyes. See, when we are part of an audience, we are doing everything we can to get the attention of the person or the persons we are there to see. But do you think that your team, or Taylor Swift for this matter, can pick you out of a crowd with thousands of people screaming at them at the same time? See, many brands, many products, many services are drowning in a sea of sameness. And it's my job to ensure that in this crowd of screaming fans, you're this guy. because this guy gets noticed. This guy draws attention. And when there's thousands of brands that are trying to get the attention for your target audience all at the same time, you have to stand out. Differentiation in business is everything. So we're well on our way to doing that. We've identified who our target audience is. We've looked at the research that's needed to figure out where we're going to craft our white space. And all of this is now used to develop our what. This is the what part of our brand building framework. What unique value are you adding to your consumers or your target audience's lives? What is the benefit to them to use your product or your service? What are you giving them that your competitors may not be giving them? This is called the benefit. There are two types of benefit. There's a product or service benefit. If you're a service company, you would say this is a service benefit. And then there's the emotional benefit. The product benefit is similar to what I was just talking about. What is the value that you are providing that solves that tension or that unmet need for your consumer? The emotional benefit is what is the emotions that are elicited after they experience that benefit? As a result of experiencing your product or your service benefit, how does your consumer now feel? This might feel like a little bit of loftiness, but we're going to put this into context and show you how this comes to life. I thought it was helpful to use the same three brands that we've been talking about earlier in this talk, so you can see how this cohesively all comes together. So for Pampers, we're going to start all the way on the left side of the screen. Full disclosure, this might be a little bit of an eye chart once we build this out, but stick with me. So Pampers, their target audience is mothers of babies, as we previously identified. The tension is that the baby is waking up in the middle of the night because of a leaky diaper, and they know that one of the key purchase drivers is leak protection. Their product benefit, therefore, is all-night leak protection. That's the value that they're providing for baby. So baby wakes up happy. That's the emotional benefit. For Uber, their target audience is urban residents who need a ride. And this, again, was when they first started out. This may have shifted for Uber as they've grown. Their tension that they're trying to alleviate is the struggle with getting to their destination quickly and efficiently. And they know that their consumers value door-to-door service. So their product benefit is that their technology connects you to drivers instantly, right? If we know that that's your struggle, you're trying to get to your destination quickly and efficiently, you value door-to-door service, hey, look, we connect you to drivers instantly. The emotional benefit is then you can feel reassured and relaxed to get where you're going. For Capital Pain and Wellness Center, the target is chronic pain sufferers. They are struggling to live their day-to-day lives, but they value impeccable customer service. So Capital Pain service benefit is premium hospitality pain care, top of the line pain care done in a hospitality industry type of way. And the emotional benefit, what they're hoping their patients walk away with, is relief and elation to get back to living the life you want. I want you to notice two things. Hopefully you can see how each of these brands, what they're building is a very linear relationship, and there is a consistent through line across each of these points. The target connects to the tension, connects to the values, connects to the product benefit, connects to the emotional benefit. The second thing I hope you're taking away is that their product or their service benefit is usually their point of difference, right? What unique value are they adding to their consumers' lives? So now we've talked about our what, and we're going to move into the how section of our brand building framework. We need to be very specific and clear as to how we are delivering on our what, which is our product benefit, right? How do we provide that solution? And how would our audience know to believe us? This is literally called the audience's reason to believe. Think of this as the proof point for your audience. You don't want to just tell them, hey, we do this for you. You need to give them a reason to believe you. So let's go back to our three examples. For Pampers, the product benefit, recall, is all-night leak protection. And so their RTB actually was put right into their ad, right? Pampers is brilliant at doing this. They put everything kind of out there for their consumers. They don't really want their consumers to guess. But if anyone remember that side-by-side demo, that was where Pampers was talking about their reason to believe, right? Pampers has 3 absorbent layers, unlike ordinary diapers that only have 2. So that's how they get to all-night leak protection. For Uber, their product benefit is connecting you to drivers instantly. Why should you believe them? Well, because they have over 1 million personal drivers connected via GPS technology. And again, this may have shifted as Uber's grown. For Capital Pain and Wellness, they offer premium hospitality pain care as a service. Now, here's a little bit of a difference. Sometimes an RTB can be a rating or a review or a claim or a stat that you can provide to your audience. How do you get someone to know or believe your service without experiencing your service quality? So for them, their RTB is over 100 5-star ratings from patients. Don't take it from us, take it from the patients who've experienced the service. And that can be an RTB as well. So now we have all of these different ingredients. We have all of these different components, and I know we've gone through a lot, but now we're going to bake our cake, and now we're going to put it all together. I like to use a specific template for the positioning statement. I will very much also say, if you Google positioning statement or brand positioning statement, you will be filled with thousands of different templates. If there's a specific template that really speaks to your heart that you want to use that works for you, totally feel free. This is a template that I have grown up using in my career. Millions of brands for generations have been using this. So for me, it works really well. And this is what it looks like. So we have all of these pieces. We're literally just like copying and inserting right into the sentence. So for who that struggle with your attention and value, the #1 purchase driver, your brand name is what category do you operate in? Are you a diaper brand? Are you a rideshare app? What are you? That provides whatever your product or service benefit is by your RTB so that you or they can, what's your emotional benefit? This sounded like a lot of gibberish, and I completely understand that. So now we're going to look at putting this into real life examples. So for Pampers, for mothers of babies who struggle with their baby waking up in the middle of the night because of a leaky diaper and value superior leak protection, Pampers is the diaper brand that provides up to 12 hours of protection by having 3 absorbent layers for superior absorption, so your baby wakes up happy. Uber, for urban residents needing a ride who struggle with getting to their destination quickly and efficiently and value door-to-door service, Uber is the rideshare app that connects you with drivers instantly by leveraging GPS technology to connect you with over 1 million drivers nationwide, so you can feel reassured and relaxed to get where you're going. And finally, Capital Pain and Wellness. For chronic pain sufferers who struggle with living their day-to-day lives and value an impeccable customer service experience, Capital Pain and Wellness is the healthcare center that provides premium hospitality pain care, evidenced by over 100 5-star ratings, so you can finally feel the relief and elation to get back to living the life you want. Hopefully you can see how all of these components come to fill a 1-sentence narrative about your brand and your business. And it gets to the heart of who you are serving, how you are serving them, what unique value you add to their lives, and why they should believe you. The key to this is simplicity. The simpler, the better, right? You also want to make sure that you are not having your audience connect any dots. You want to connect all the dots for them. So if you look at your positioning statement and you go, this is like way too simple, that's perfect. That's when you know it's perfect. I want to close with a little bit of a story. When I was in my mid-20s, I had decided that I was ready to apply to graduate school. Like I alluded to a little bit earlier in this talk, I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, and I'm proud of that. And if someone could pay me to go to school for the rest of my life, I would totally do that. But I really had strategically built my education and my career to really get that goal. I wanted to go to graduate school, and so much so that I studied for the GMAT for a year because I suck at standardized tests, and I really wanted to make sure I was maximizing my chances to get the right score. So application time came around, and I applied to 12 schools, all schools that I felt pretty confident about. I felt pretty qualified for. And then decision time came around, and I got rejected by all 12 schools. And I was devastated. I was confused, I was PO'd, but I was devastated. And I went to a family friend of mine. He's still a great mentor to me to this day. And I sent him all these declined, rejected application essays. And I was venting to him. And I was like, I just don't understand, right? I literally have done everything I possibly can. I have met all of the checklist requirements across all the MBA forums, all of the application websites. I literally check every box. And if you look at the people that got accepted, like, I'm just like them. Like, I don't understand what I could have missed. And we were talking for a while. And at one point he like looked at me and he was like, look, dude, like, yeah, you check all the boxes, but nowhere in here do I understand what I lose if I lose you. And that point really hit home for me. See, what he taught me was what Simon Sinek would go on to very eloquently state, as Simon Sinek often does, which is the value that you bring to the table is directly proportional to your ability to communicate it. I thought I had done that, but I didn't. I was so focused on having these schools understand how I fit all of the checklist requirements and how I fit their mold that I didn't realize that they weren't looking for me to fit a mold. They were looking to understand, what uniquely did I bring to the table? If you fail to effectively communicate your value, you can't expect your audience to appreciate what you have to offer. And that's why the frameworks and the tools that we've talked about in this session today are so important. Because if you take the time to do these right, they will serve you, and you will build not only a brand and a business that is sustainable, but you'll build a brand and a business that stands out. So with that, I thank you for your time. On the right side of this screen is my email. In case I don't get to your questions today, please email them to me. And on the left side of your screen is a QR code, which is a very quick link to a feedback survey. The feedback means the world to me. I read everything and I always want to make sure that I'm improving. So please take just 2 minutes of your time to fill out this quick survey. For me, it would mean the world, but I'll also be emailing you all the survey so you can fill it out in email if you don't get to it today. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to get to some Q&As. Oh, there's no open questions. All right, well, let's see. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to answer anything. Don't be shy. So usually, when we go through some of these seminars, people are wondering, like, what exactly, how do you define attention? How do you really get to the heart of what your audience is struggling with? So things that, you can work through on that is always understand, what are they struggling with so much so that they're willing to pay to have that removed? And I know we brought that issue up in the presentation, but I think that's a key point I wanted to underscore, because again, we're all about building a successful business, right? And we want that business to thrive. So that's just a key part to not forget. Oh, yay, we have a question. Where do you start for researching your audience? Great. And their facts, reports, library, social. Okay, great. That's a wonderful question. So depending on how you've built your business, if the idea for your business stemmed from a specific audience, either it was you or someone you know or someone that you observed, you can always start by putting yourself in the presence of those groups of people. Where do they frequent? Where do they go? In terms of key research reports, I really like Pew Research. It's free, and they have a lot of different research reports that they're always looking at different types of consumers, different behaviors, changing, habits between generations even. So I think that that's a great place to start. But also, one thing that might be helpful to you is building an email database. So if you have an email marketing campaign attached to your business, build your email database, and you can actually send them surveys. You can send them questionnaires. You can always get on the phone, talk to your consumers. I will tell you, no brands do that anymore. And the brands that do, I actually worked for a startup once who literally got on the phone and talked to as many of their consumers or their followers on Instagram. They DM'd them like, hey, I would love to talk to you. Can I have your phone number? Like, can we chat, or whatever you're comfortable with? And it meant so much to those consumers that the brand had actually taken the time to get to know them as a human. And that has really helped loyalty in the long run. So don't discount some of the older forms of communication that we all used to use. But yeah, social media is great. Researching some of those reports that we talked about, if you have a large budget, which I know not a lot of people do usually at this stage, but you can look at IRI reports, you can look at Nielsen household reports as well to get some data. But otherwise, use what you have, build up your database for consumers, send them surveys, send them research reports or research questions, and that's how you'll get to know. You can also do focus groups, and there are companies that specialize in doing focus groups that you can hire. Another thing that you can also do is video research now. So a lot of people are doing that where they're looking at vlogs of their audience, and you can do that through YouTube as well. You can just get people to send to a specific link and they'll record a vlog for you on what they think about your brand or your product or their behavior. So I hope that answered that question. La Brea, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, please forgive me. When is a good time to pivot if the results of your work is not showing? That's a really good question. So there's not a straight answer to this because every business is different. Every market is different. And so when we think about pivoting, I also am curious to know, are you thinking of pivoting to a different target audience, or are you pivoting to a different attribute that you want to focus on? I think the best place to start is defining at the start of when you're building out your fundamentals, what are your milestones and goals that you want to hit for your business? You know your business the best, and you also know your financial situation the best. And so this is where financials really come to play, is what goals do you want to hit? And if you're not hitting them by those goals, you might want to start really going back to that research stage and saying, okay, what information can I know from my existing consumers to understand where I need to pivot? Do I need to pivot the target audience totally? Or do I still want to keep that target audience, but maybe pivot on a different attribute that they would value more than the attribute I'm giving today? So I know that there's not a clear-cut answer here because it really depends on what is the length of how much time you've invested and what can you, how much you can invest. The other key point to note here is businesses take a long time to get up and running. So sometimes don't give up too early. It takes time to build traction, and building a brand takes a very long time. It can take years. So if you truly believe you have the right attributes and the right audience, stick with it for as much as you can. Another question is around, can a positioning statement be too narrow or specific? The answer to that is yes. Great point. You do want, so when I talk about audiences and when we talked about personas, one of the great points about personas is that it gives us some room to breathe, right? So if you looked at the Uber example, or you looked at the Capital Pain and Wellness example, there's a lot of people that can fit under chronic pain sufferers or urban residents who need a ride. And that level of breadth is very critical because that allows you to flex and grow your market size. But when it comes to your positioning statement, being specific is actually a benefit, because as long as your audience is big enough, and that's why we go into identifying the market size, right? The market potential. As long as that is big enough, getting to the specificity of how you add value is extremely important. Because again, if you leave that too broad, you mean everything to everyone, and that's not what you want to do. And so this is where there's not a hard, fast rule of this word is more specific and this word is, too broad. You really have to look at the entire positioning statement as a whole and understand where you can flex and play and what still makes the most sense for your audience. One person asks, I know we're a little bit over, but I'm going to make sure I get to this question. You've done work for some large brands, and how does a small business interested in doing business with large brands position themselves against the competition or another company they've been doing business with before? Tips. So how does a small business interested in doing business with large brands position themselves? So if you're looking to partner with larger brands, I think this doesn't change the fundamentals, right? So when larger brands are looking for partnerships, sometimes it's a little bit of a harder sell because they have the audience, they have the target, they have the budget. And so if you're a smaller brand and to get them to partner with you requires like you adding some unique value that they have not thought of. And this is where I think going very deep into the differentiation part of your positioning is key to getting larger brands to listen to you. That's if you're looking to partner. And I think that's what startups do really, really well, right? They're extremely creative at identifying, hey, this is where the market is shifting and the trends are shifting. This is something that we can try out. And then positioning themselves against the competition or another company that they've been doing business with or before. Yeah, I think it goes back to that differentiation part. To be very frank and very honest, large brands are not going to be impressed with a budget or like, hey, I can, my partnership will deliver X% of audience reach for you, because they already have the reach. So they're not necessarily going to get benefit from that. What they are going to get benefit from is what uniquely do you bring to the table that they can't do. Also understand that large brands are constantly paralyzed sometimes by process. And so if you can do something faster for them and do it at a rate that either a more cost-effective rate or a faster pace, that is another benefit that you can market to them that they would be interested in. So I hope that helps. With that, I just want to thank everyone again so much for taking the time to be here today. And please, I'd love it if you could fill out the survey. Let me know what worked for you and what didn't work. And I would love to just continue the conversation. So feel free to email me if you have any questions. All right, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, guys.